I love pinball. I'm not a pinball wizard, but I'm decent at it. I like how pinball takes a basic rule of don't let the ball go down the hole and spins it out into a million different ways. Video pinball tends to be a bit more dicey. It's really easy to get the physics wrong and make the game feel unresponsive or worse, random. In fact, I'd say nobody got video pinball exactly right until the Pro Pinball series of computer games in the late 90s. Which doesn't mean that the games before that were awful, just that they really needed to offer something other than realistic pinball action. Could have been the quality of the tables, or the spectacle of the play. They just needed something more than flicking the ball up into a bumper. Nintendo's pinball entered a kind of barren scene. As far as I can tell, there was no previous pinball video game released in Japan. Atari and Intellivision had made video pinball games, but they weren't very good. The extremely popular Pinball Construction set had been released in 1983, but that's a computer game, so we're not going to talk about it. Nintendo's pinball is something I'd put down as a good attempt that falls down mainly because the rules of the genre were still being figured out. It's not the worst pinball game on the Famicom by far. An important note here is that Pinball is the first game that HAL Laboratories worked on for Nintendo. They're not really a developer on it. Nintendo did all the design of this one in-house and then fell behind schedule with the programming, so HAL was brought in to wrap it up. It won't be long, though, before they're doing their own game development for the Famicom. And they quickly become a solid publisher in their own right, at least until a disastrous misstep in the late days of the Famicom. But that's a story for episode 835. So let's dig into pinball. A television screen doesn't match the dimensions of a pinball table very well, so what Nintendo did was split the play field in half. They gave each their own set of flippers, an outline connects both of them, and to get back up, there's a few hidden tricks. It is possible to shoot the ball up to the top half once it's fallen down, but it's pretty difficult. The easiest method to get back up is to shoot this hole over here, which takes you to the bonus stage. When you exit the bonus stage, you wind up coming out on the top side. Alternatively, you can hit all 7 drop targets on the left-hand side, and that opens up a path to the launch ramp. The path only stays open until you go over one of the rollovers in the flipper lane, so it winds up not being as useful as you might imagine. Let's split this conversation in half to match the table, and start by talking about the top play area. There's no skill shot when you launch the ball, so the most you can do is hope to get that 1,000-point rollover. The rollovers don't activate any light-up target either, so there's no additional bonus that's being gained up there. Shooting into the lane on the right triggers the slot machine game. The slot machine flashes between Penguin, 7, and 3. You have to have all 3 symbols matched to get any points for it. 3 penguins net you 1,000 points, 3 threes get you 3,330 points, and 3 sevens get you 7,770 points. The penguins occur more often than any other symbol on that slot machine, and it's actually pretty tricky to get points off of it. Each of the dots on the left ramp are 100 points, and they don't come back until the ball rolls up through the top of it. Getting to the top of the ramp triggers the seals bouncing some balls, which get 100 points every time they bounce. The ramp is also tied to the target on the left-hand side. Each time you hit it, the value increases by 100 points until it reaches 1,000 points. The value resets when you complete the ramp. The drop targets on the left-hand side are the most boring of these. They're worth 100 points each, and completing the set is 1,000 points. They don't trigger anything special. Moving down to the lower play field, the most important thing down there are the eggs. Hitting them once hatches them into chicks. Hitting the chick just makes that spot blank. Hitting that blank spot returns it to be an egg. Get 3 chicks there, and bumpers appear in the out lanes. They'll send the ball bouncing back if it rolls out that way. The cards at the top are also important, but much more difficult to collect. Completing all 5 rollover targets there adds a blocker in the middle between the flippers to prevent the ball from rolling out. It also changes the color of the lower play field. So that's the table, and as a whole, it really isn't that great. It feels like a basic early 70s design rather than something from the 1980s. Bumpers in the middle and lanes on the side are pretty much the most basic table layout possible. While they implemented some table features to be more video game-like, such as the kickback in the out lanes, they don't feel like a good use of the medium, either pinball or video game. The best feature that they implement is the bonus stage, in which they actually give up on the pinball concept in general. On the bonus stage, Mario walks back and forth carrying a girder above his head to keep the ball bouncing. When the ball rolls over a number, it changes its color. Make a column be the same color, and the floor up top shrinks a little bit. Eventually a hole will open up and Lady will fall through. Mario then has to catch her and get her to one of the exits on the side. If Mario lets Lady fall, that counts as a lost ball. However, if the ball goes out on its own, then it just returns to play. Another feature of pinball is that when you reach 100,000 points, your flippers disappear. You have to play the game with invisible flippers until 150,000 points, when they reappear, and then they stay around for the rest of the game. As for how it plays as pinball, well, you'll never mistake it for the real thing. The ball doesn't react like a real ball does. It's got a bit too much bounce to it. But the physics are pretty consistent, which is more than I can say for some pinball games. There are random elements that come in when the ball bounces, and you can see that as it jiggles off certain targets. There's no way to nudge the table in pinball, so you're completely at the mercy of those rebounds. You can mitigate that with some skill, always taking safe shots and playing conservatively. But that random element will ensure that sometimes you just have to take a bad shot. And on occasion, a ball will drain and you have no control over it. Pinball never got a picture cart re-release like some other games in the Pulse Line series. It did get a Famicom disk system re-release, though. And it even got taken back to the arcades. Why you'd choose to play it when a real pinball machine is right there, I don't know, but it was an option. And of course, this isn't HAL's last pinball game. They'll go on to make several more for the Famicom and Game Boy. I find pinball to be a historically interesting relic, but not a game that I really like going back to. It was only good when it was released in comparison to what was available. Times have moved on, and pinball is best left in the past.